an opportunity like this doesn't come around too often.
This is all I've been working for as long as I can remember.
지면 바로 떨어지기 때문에 떨어지는 것만큼은 용납할 수가 없어요.
I'm so focused on wanting to get back into LCS. I'm really hungry for the opportunity. I understand if I don't get it done now, I might never get it done.
다음 시즌에 저희 팀이 어느 정도 할 수 있는지를 보여주는 기회라고 생각해요. 사실 전 떨어질 거라고 전혀 생각을 하고 있지 않기 때문에.
We're all here to fight to keep our spot. I'm just playing to prove that my team deserves to be in the LCS.
Oh my gosh, Shifter drops down Apollo.
Our mid laner is Alexic. I think he will do really well against Holopit.
Against the Nookum, and Alexic may just clean up here.
Our chance is like 95%. We're an LCS team and they're a challenger team.
이제 여기서 무너질 순 없어요. 그래서 반드시 이길 거예요.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 2015 North American Summer Promotion Tournament. Today, 4 teams will face off to determine who will join the North American League Championship Series. Hello, I'm James Dash Patterson, and joining me on the analyst desk are Aiden's Irene Moon and Team Liquid's support Special. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. It's going to be a pretty exciting day where a lot's on the line for these two teams.
Yeah, it might be a long day, too, considering both best-of-5s right back-to-back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now, earlier in the week, the league was rocked by news that Cloud9 would be making a big roster change. Hai, their mid laner and primary shot caller, would be stepping down from active duty to take on a managerial position with the team. This marks the first change to the team lineup in 129 NA LCS games, the longest run for a team without a personnel change.
Yeah, Hai stepping down is pretty big because he has kind of a legacy already. He kind of revolutionized North American shot calling as a whole and really put us on the board internationally and competitively. So seeing Hai go, it's kind of saddening for me, but at the same time, I'm excited to see what's in the future for him as well as Cloud9.
Special, what do you think about this roster shakeup? Because Cloud9 has kind of been the epitome of a together team, one that dominated so much over the past year or two, and now they lose the heart of it.
It's definitely not surprising when you have such a dominant team like Cloud9, TSM. When things don't go well, when you don't get first place, you're gonna make a change, and it wasn't unexpected, but it does hurt to see Hai go. Hai really, he did, like you said, he did revolutionize the shot calling in NA. Much like how Bjergsen pretty much made all the mid laners in NA kind of have to step up to his level. Hai did the same thing. If your shot calling wasn't as good as Cloud9, you're not going to beat them. And because of that, shot calling in NA got a lot better. And because of that, internationally, NA is going to look stronger as well. But obviously, without him, who knows how Cloud9 would do now.
Well, he's definitely, as you mentioned, left his mark on the league, and it will be exciting to see what he does in the future in regards to League of Legends. Well, turning to today's matches, we have 2 challenger teams, Fusion and TDK, who will be looking to unseat Team Dignitas and WinterFox to claim a spot in the LCS. Especially, you've played against both of these defending LCS teams, so how do you think they'll perform today?
It's weird. WinterFox is one of those teams that, you're like looking at the roster, strong roster, but you see, they're really young, they have a lot of potential, and then they do well sometimes, and then we always lose to them. So I'm always like, okay, WinterFox, you guys can probably beat them, but just make sure you turn up today. But Dignitas, on the other hand, they're a slightly weaker roster, but they seem to have more synergy together. They seem to be better friends, and they've been playing together for a little bit longer. I mean, it's hard to tell who's going to do better today, but WinterFox is definitely the more favorites going to these matches.
Yeah, and on the flip side of it, the challenger teams, they're coming into it not as favorites on either side, right? The LCS teams still have a little bit of an edge there. But both teams, I'm really excited for today, Fusion and TDK, because they both have clear ways to win these matchups. It's not like, it's going to be a huge uphill battle, right? Fusion, if they survive the early game and get past Core JJ and KiwiKid with a lane swap, then they're good to go. See if they clean up their late game shot calling. They definitely have a way to win. And then you look at TDK, Seraph over Avalon is definitely a matchup that Seraph can exploit and start snowballing with. And then Altec, he does have the edge over Louis GG in the bot lane, but if they lane swap it, then it comes down to Alex Each versus Pobelter, which is just up in the air. Like, no, people really have been like kind of keeping tabs on Alex. It's like, where's this guy actually sit? Because the last time we saw him in Challenger competitively, he looked like he was on his way out, but he was against 3 of the top 4 European mid laners that are now up there. So we don't really have a good read on where Alex is, and Pobelter's going to be the one finding that out today.
I was going to say, that's the interesting thing is so often during the season we were looking at Pobelter as that carry on the team. Altec as well, right? He can get there, but a lot of times it was more him picking up the cleanup kills, getting the gold he needed, and then pushing through to a win. But Pobelter, so much as the team relies on him so much, and he's going up against Alex, who has widely been regarded, through his career as one of the top mid laners in the world. Granted, he's had maybe a bit of a decline since the days of Moscow 5 and Gambit's reign, but a lot is going to hinge on that matchup. Do you think Pobelter can stack up special?
Definitely. I mean, Alexic, he isn't the monster he was, but he's still really good. But it's definitely hard to read. I don't have no idea how good Alex is right now. And I think if he does really well, we can see his team, his newly formed challenger team, really make a run for the next wave of LCS too.
I think one of the other interesting things about our first matchup of the day, Fusion versus Dignitas, you mentioned it a little bit, the idea of Dignitas' synergy. They are a team that seems to at least work well together in that when the call is made to go in, they go at least. And they've had a little bit of time here since the end of the split, sticking with the same roster, as that's something they were plagued with throughout the season, is switching out their junglers two times, not having a whole lot of time with any one given roster. Well, now they've made it through the end of the split with a roster. A few weeks after that, do we think that they're going to come in and kind of blow some people out of the water with what they've done in terms of teamwork?
I honestly don't know. I don't know what Dignitas has been doing these last few days. They have had more time with Rico, so if they've been actually just kind of pounding things home and adjusting to the meta, if Azingi's like really comfortable on Sejuani now and they have more team fighting styles, then they could definitely throw Fusion for a loop, because Fusion love to team fight, but they love to get Nia and Tanso to that point. So a lot of this is going to be on the bot lanes here in this matchup.
You speak about the bot lanes. KiwiKid, a big part of that for Dignitas. And while he's been a long-standing figure in the esports scene, he recently took a minute to share with us the journey that has brought him to professional gaming and where he sees himself going.
In 8th grade, there was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Kind of presentation or like just like little word assignment. And I was like, yeah, I want to be a professional gamer. And I thought I was just messing around. It was completely unserious. And kind of here I am, so it's just kind of funny how things worked out. Halfway through my sophomore year of college, my mom, I think she had like empty nest syndrome, where she just started like missing me a lot. And so she struck a deal with me. She would buy me like a used car. In exchange, I would be commuting instead of living in an apartment as I did the past like 1.5 years of college. And I thought that was great. Like, I wanted a car. It didn't seem that bad, and I can help my mom like do groceries and stuff. 3 days after that, I got a text from Skara. He was like, I'm just gonna cut to the chase, you made it, man. Congrats. I was like, cool. I was like, whoa. I was like, what does this mean? And he was like, well, you need to come in California soon. I got that news the same day tuition was due, and I was so scared of getting like, screwed over. I was panicking the whole time. I was like, what am I gonna do? I ended up just trusting him. I didn't pay tuition. I was like, okay, I guess I'm leaving. And I was so excited. I told my siblings. They were like, they just kind of expected it. My friends were like, yeah, that's kind of typical. Like, we knew you were good at games. But when I told my parents, they were very, I wouldn't say disappointed. I think it was worse than disappointed. They were like, they just spurned me. They kind of like berated me a little, and they were very, very unsupportive. And I was like, dang, what am I gonna do? Like, I didn't have the money for a plane. Like, I would have flown there. And I was like, wait a second, I have a car. I can just drive there. In 30 minutes, I packed up. I didn't say bye to my dad. I mean, we're really cool now, because I don't want him to be too hurt. Like, I love you. But yeah, I just said bye to my mom, and that's it. And it was like a 5-second goodbye. I don't think she realized what I was actually doing. I think she just thought I was either kidding or just going to like the movies or something, because she was very nonchalant about it. That day, I just left at like 4 p.m. and just drove 22 hours straight to Long Beach. I remember my heart just thumping the whole time. It was, man, it was really scary, but it's pretty crazy to just think back on it and like what could have happened and where I am now. I started out as top lane, and I actually spring split I believe I played like really low. I had a lot of people look up to me, even the veterans. Like I remember Dyrus like asking me for tips in between spring and summer split. The meta kind of shifted towards like tanks. It was like Renekton, Shyvana's. I felt like my attitude towards the role was kind of changing. And it really showed in my performances. Like I had the most deaths for the summer split of 2013, and that's pretty much practically unacceptable. Like that's why I stepped down after summer split. I packed up, I was ready to go home, ready to make my drive back to Austin. And then as I was bringing my suitcase up, PewDiePie was just like, I mean, it wasn't just PewDiePie, I guess they really wanted to try me out as support. And I was like, sure, that sounds fun. Playing with PewDiePie was like one of the funniest things I've ever done in my life. Eventually, like, we kind of had like a little bromance scene going on.
Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away.
Like when we're like on, it's like a dance kinda, and he's my tango partner.
Yeah, we're just tangoing around, we're dancing on, and we're killed.
Alright, follow my lead, babe. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
You know, he was like one of my best friends there, in addition to Skara. Whenever I was considering just taking academic leave and coming to esports, the only reason why I want to do this is I want to get to Worlds. That's like been like one of my biggest dreams of being in esports, and yeah, it sucks that I'm playing in relegation. It's not really a high point, but it's kind of a stepping stone because 3 of my teammates right now are new. Like they've just started playing professionally, and a stable roster really means a lot, and I'm looking to stay with this roster for a while, and hopefully we can, you know, make it big. So I'm just thankful for like everybody I've met. Thankful for all the experience I've had. I'm doing what I love, and it makes me really happy.
A pretty incredible journey there for KiwiKid, and especially you as a support in the league who's played against him quite a lot. You know, sometimes people forget that he started out in the top lane and made that transition. How do you believe he's grown throughout his years in the LCS, particularly in the support role?
It's definitely a huge change for him. He went from a solid top laner to a below average top laner to a below average support, and now he's actually pretty good. I think people underrate him a lot, and they always see, oh yeah, like this guy, you know, he was the worst top laner for a while, and he went to support, you know, trying to fill like some random role, and isn't doing so well, but now he's doing fine. And I think during the Annie meta a couple of weeks back, he was doing extremely well, and he was pretty much just putting Dignitas on their backs, I mean, putting Dignitas on his back and carrying them in a lot of these games. But nowadays, the tank meta, it's a lot less about spot initiation and more about team play and just strong laning and good 2v1s.
And then their bot lane is very strong. We look at KiwiKid and Core JJ, and they have beaten some of the better bot lanes throughout the season. But one of KiwiKid's main points of criticism throughout his career has been that he can get over-aggressive, roams a bit too much, tries to be too much of a playmaker, and it can cause him to get caught out and end up giving away games. So I guess Irene here, and not that there's a specific answer here, which KiwiKid do we think is going to show up today? Is it going to be the one who, as a veteran, you know, is cool, calm, and collected and is making the plays, or is it going to be, you know, the KiwiKid that struggles a bit to get his bearings under him throughout the game?
Well, I haven't seen him today, so of course I had to take a shot in the dark. I do think it's going to be the KiwiKid that's making the plays, right? I think he's confident coming into this matchup. He's up against the challenger team. That's always a little bit of a bolster for an LCS squad where you're like, oh, okay, we know we have more practice. We know we have a squad that's been together for a little bit longer for ourselves. So the fact that I think that Nian Tanso and Trance are going to lane swap on them gives KiwiKid free roam to just roam around the map, go middle, go affect the jungle. So I think he's going to be able to play a lot to his strength in a style, because sometimes he will falter and die in the 2-on-2, and that's, I think, one of his big weaknesses, and like getting a little too trigger happy with the engages. But when he's free to just roam around, we've seen him take over games and like be like, why is KiwiKid top lane at 4 minutes in the game, right? Things like that happen. I think we're going to see some of that this game.
Why is it that you think Fusion is going to be pulling those lane swaps? You think it's just simply because they can't match up in the 2v2?
I think it's because Nian Tanso, he is the main shot caller of the team as an AD carry, and it's a little unorthodox to call from that role. So he's going to be wanting the lane swap. They actually lane swap, and if they get matched 2-on-2, they send Ni and Tanso, after shoving the wave with Corki, back to just go down bottom again, because they do not want the 2-on-2, just so he can get through unharassed through laning phase, because he's the late game carry. His strength is team fighting, and that's where they want to get him to.
All right, the next lane I want to look at here real quickly is the Chunky Fresh versus Gamsu lane. In the top lane, Gamsu has been a very strong performer for Dignitas throughout the season, even in their roughest of times, in their toughest losses. We've always come away saying he did fairly well. You look at the stats, even CS numbers compared to other top laners. He's performed pretty decently. How do you think that lane's going to be playing out?
I think that Gamsu's gone a little underrated. There are some really good top laners in the league, Zion, Spartan, Dyrus, these guys who take over the game, right, like Impact. So I think he's like right around the threshold of being in the top of the league for top laners. But the thing is he still has to break through with consistency. He does have good CS numbers, and transitioning that into team fights is something that he needs to do a little better, because he kind of plays more solo carry oriented. But I mean, I think today, up against Chunky Fresh, who's a little bit of an uneventful player, kind of like, I will farm, I will join the team with Sion late game, and then I'll just do tanky things in the meta, right? He'll just peel, he's not going to take over the game. So it gives Gamsu more room to execute on his style.
All right, before we jump to the next topic, I just want to update the audience real quick. We're having a couple issues with player accounts at the moment, so hopefully that'll be sorted out soon. We'll get those players into game. But back to you, Xpecial, with Shifter versus Huhi here, because Shifter was a rock star at one point in time in his career, has kind of fallen away from that a little bit. He's known for his RE play, but the meta is constantly changing in the mid lane now. We're moving away from assassins, which he has since been touted as like, oh, I'll just farm and I'll show up in team fights. Is that going to support his style of play here?
I think he has definitely fallen off a lot since the early season and last season as well. And he hasn't shown to anybody that he's a top mid laner in NA. And that could be an issue, even though he isn't maybe the top mid laner in NA as well. But on a challenger team, generally you want to have, on an LCS, you want to have a better mid laner. You want to be able to say, okay, Shifter, he's way better than this challenger guy. But that doesn't seem to be the case, and that could be troublesome, because mid lane matchups generally can snowball either way. But one thing that has happened a lot recently is supports and junglers and top laners are going to go mid lane level 2, level 3. And if they can put that pressure onto Huhi, then Shifter will easily get ahead, and he can even snowball the lane.
All right, let's look at the jungler's ability to impact this game. Zingy playing a lot of Zac near the end of the season. Has he expanded his champion pool, especially? Do you think that he is a weak point in the team that Fusion can target in order to kind of free up that mid lane and let Nintendo have more impact?
It's hard to say. I definitely think Nintendo, he's one of those really aggressive players, and if Nintendo can get ahead of a Zingy early on, I think as Nintendo can actually take over the game as well. He's one of those players that I feel is really, really emotional, and if he's on point, he's going to be on point the whole series, the rest of the game, and he can definitely do a lot. And Zingy's kind of the same way, but the way I see Zingy is that he's a smart player, but sometimes he does kind of silly things that can really put his team behind.
Yeah, and Nintendo, last time we saw him, I think he's improved drastically since then, because he kind of had like a really bad showing last time we saw him in Coast, and now he's back, and his Nidalee play is really good. His Sejuani team fights are really good. I think he's much happier on this team than he was on Coast. I think that's a big thing is for him, his mentality, is I feel like he feels like he has a lot of say on this team, on what they do. I think that really helps him as a player too.
I mean, it's funny too, since Shifter and Nintendo were teammates at one point.
There's actually a lot here too, because Huhi used to be on the same team as Core JJ.
This is back in Korea and on Big File Miracle. Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of familiarity with each other's play styles. So, they're having little powwows being like, Shifter likes to play like this. You could camp him early.
Right. And then you arrive at the fact that today is a best of 5, right? So as always, their team's abilities to adjust in a best of 5 series comes into question. And I think, here, two rather inexperienced teams. Dignitas is an organization that's been around for a very long time, has competed in many best of 5s, but this roster itself fairly young, right? KiwiKid's been around, Shifter's been around, Core JJ even so, but Zingy, who is part of their shot calling, isn't so familiar with that best of 5 format. Is that something that mentally can start to weigh on a player with so much responsibility on the team, Xpecial?
That does. But one thing that this split has really helped is the addition of coaches and with that analysts as well. And both of these teams have decent staff, and they're gonna be there in between the games. They're gonna be like, hey guys, like this is what you guys should do, what you should ban, think about this. And it's gonna be interesting to see who has the better staff and who's gonna come in between the games and just come out ahead from that.
Yep, it's all mid-series adaptation, right? You lose game 1, bounce back, take game 2. And side selection 2, Dignitas, once again, they pulled the TSM strat, where you get side selection 1, 3, and 5. They're like, okay, blue, red, blue. So there's this big chunk of Dignitas being red side 3 games in a row after game 2 through game 4. So they're going to have counter pick. They're going to be able to set Gamsu up on something. If they are like, okay, that didn't work, Shifter gets his counter pick next time. So I think that Dignitas with the side selection choice there, that's a really, really good way to feel the game out, getting a power pick early and then getting counter picks through the series.
All right, just another update. The accounts have been figured out. Everything is settled there.
Sweet.
The players need a few minutes to warm up their fingers since they had to remove themselves from their computers for just a moment. So we're going to afford them that time. Meanwhile, back to the coaching staff and the plans here. As you mentioned, the 3 red sides for Dignitas here. 1 implies that they have a plan, right? And we've been told that the reason why teams are picking that when they have the 1, 3, 5 choice is to make sure they at least have 1 game on the red side, because a lot of teams do have red side specific strategies. But back to that mid lane, Shifter having the opportunity to counterpick 3 games in a row could be pretty big in swinging these matches. But more specifically, I want to look at the champion pools. Irene, earlier this morning we were talking about Kassadin and his rise to prominence yet again, the power that is associated with that champion. Well, that is someone that we've seen Shifter solo carry his team with. Do we ever expect to see that come out today, or is that going to be off the table?
I definitely think that Kassadin's something that could come out from Shifter. I think he's extremely powerful right now. People kind of underrated him for a bit, but then he just shot out of nowhere like, oh, I'm still relevant, 1.4 second Rift Walk, tons of damage, tons of mobility, really good pick there. And you can't really pick it blue side because you get countered by AD mids. Like Power People's like, oh, I'm going to pick Varus. Pawn is like, oh, I'm going to pick Jace. A lot of things that play into it fairly easily. But Huhi, you talked about Shifter being an assassin player. He's an assassin player as well. He's like, I want to play LeBlanc, I want to play Zed. And then he split pushes, and they try to 1-3-1 sometimes with Nien, or have him like 4-1 split push. So Huhi's going to try to split push part of this game if he gets on assassin, or we could see both players just going, oh, LeBlanc, Zed, both games, back and forth. So this is going to be about who's picked up Cho'Gath, who's picked up Urgot, and if they show it, then it kind of shuts down the other person if they haven't practiced something along those lines.
It's going to make for some very interesting mid lane matchups, maybe some explosive ones too. I would love to see the LeBlanc, LeBlanc Zed, some crazy plays being made. So we expect to see a lot out of the mid lane in terms of pressuring the rest of the map, maybe some carry potential there. I want to go back down to the bot lane again because Nien and Trance versus Core JJ and KiwiKid. Nien has had a very up and down career. One of those guys we've seen win games, at least backdoor from the, end in all roles. That's the crazy thing about Nien, right? Is he's played across the board. He's a very experienced player. AD carry does seem to be where he's most comfortable and where he's most able to shine. And luckily for them right now, AD carry is a high priority role in terms of carry here in this tank meta. So, I mean, do we assume then that this gives Fusion quite an advantage that they have such a stellar AD carry?
I think it's back and forth because Core JJ is really good at dominating the lane with something like Sivir and then shutting people down. If they do get the lane swap, then Nien Tanso on his hyper carries, he can take over a game. And his positioning in late game is really his big strength. So if they get him there, he'll stay alive in the team fights. But do you ever get Nien on your team in solo queue? Do you ever support him? Ever?
Not recently, I don't think.
Well, I want to ask you, what's it like? Do you support him ever? Do you play against him? Do you know his style in solo queue?
I think, when you play hyper carry, generally your laning isn't the best. It's just natural way of, oh, I have a weaker early game, stronger late game. It's just how the game works. But when I lane against Core JJ and KiwiKid, I'm like, these guys, they're gonna be on us. They're gonna be super aggressive, and A, they're easy to gank. B, they can overextend really easily. There's a lot of downsides with how they play. But if you are playing hyper carry and you're playing against a Core JJ KiwiKid, you're gonna be scared. You're gonna be, I want to get out of this lane. Like, get me out of here. I want to lane swap. So I definitely agree with you guys when you guys say, oh, these guys are probably gonna lane swap. And that's just because the way their play styles mesh against each other. I would not want to lane against Quarter J and KiwiKid if I'm playing Jinx or any sort of hyper carry.
Well, this means the level 1 should be very interesting. We'll look to see where those deep wards are placed, whether or not Dignitas can call a lane swap from Fusion. It's about that time, though, now, gentlemen, where I ask you for your predictions on this series. Who's going to be either making it into the LCS for the first time or returning for another split?
I'm going to go Fusion. I'll go Fusion this time.
Okay.
I want to see those challenger guys that have been casting all year make it in. They tried expansion. They didn't make it, made some roster swaps. Now I think they're going to come out today with the Nian Tanso and Nintendo performance.
Just through sheer force of will?
Yep.
Or, all right, just they want it that badly, they're going to make it happen.
Yep.
I like it. What about you, especially? Who are you voting for?
It's tough. I'm going to say 3-2 for Dignitas. I think Dignitas, LCS team, they have more experience. Fusion, I think they're going to go close, maybe even take it, but I think my odds are on Dignitas.
All right, well, it should be an exciting series then if it goes to 5 games, nice and close. Right now on LOLesports.com, 52% of the fans are calling the series for Team Dignitas, so that is a razor-thin margin there.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of is represented in your guys' predictions as well. Now, we are less than 2 weeks away from the mid-season invitational from May 7th to May 10th. You can see the best teams from around the world compete in Tallahassee, Florida. Space is still available, so head to LOLesports.com, click the tickets link so you can learn how to see all the action in person. Now, though, we're going to send it over to the casters to get the games underway.
Thank you very much, Josh. What is up, everybody? I am David Freak Turley. Calling the big plays with me today is Joshua Jatleesman, at least for our first best of 5. As we saw from pastry time over in China, voices tend to give out. We'll be swapping for the next series, but...
Yeah, we'll have to see how it goes, because if we use European LCS promotion tournament as any indication, those games were very one-sided in the sides of the former LCS teams, but based on the fan vote, based on the split decision between Zyrene and Next Special, this could be a much closer affair.
I feel like Zyrene's a little bit biased, but we'll have to see on this one. We're gearing up for our first best of 5 anyway between Team Dignitas and Team Fusion. Now, for Dignitas, they are one of the 4 remaining original teams of the North American LCS, but once again, they are fighting to stay in the league.
And if we look at Team Dignitas, they are an organization that has lofty aspirations, and they do expect to be one of the top teams in North America. If we look at all the things they did before the season, boot camping in Korea, bringing in a world-class coach midway through the season, but coming into the split, they had to keep making roster changes, right? They switched out and brought in Gamsu and Core JJ for the split. Then they lost Crumbs, and they started that revolving door at Jungle, and they never really found the perfect fit or chemistry during the split, which is one of the reasons for their main struggles. That being said, though, Core JJ and KiwiKid, they have been a consistently strong lane for Team Dignitas. They go toe-to-toe with some of the best bot lanes in the LCS, as X Special was saying.
Absolutely. And these guys are a very scary bot lane overall. Team Fusion actually relies on their AD carry Nian for their entire mid-game, basically. And as the desk was saying, we do expect Fusion to go for the 1v2.
Yeah, and it's actually how Fusion routinely gets early game leads. But then they've had kind of this main shortcoming all year, which is shot calling in the late game. With that being said, Fusion recently made a complete shakeup of their coaching staff. They brought in, many people would know, Bubadub as former Complexity support as an analyst, and then Curry Shot GG as a coach. So that switch up in the coaching and analyzing of that team will hope to correct those problems. And then you also have to look at Nian and Nintendo, who have both been in the LCS before, and they're going to try and pry off some of that past experience, teach it to the new guys, and then hopefully get back into the LCS.
Yeah, we'll see if they can get their way back in. Of course, speaking of Nintendo, he's actually very familiar with Shifter overall. They played together, of course, on Team Dignitas, and he actually believes that this guy knows how to handle his former teammate.
I think Shifter, he's known to be very assassin-based, where he plays a lot of, Zed, LeBlanc. He's very known for his Ahri. And I think he can be kind of an impatient player, because if he doesn't get going, he kind of, gets frustrated or shuts down, doesn't really know, how to win the game, maybe through a more traditional standpoint. So I think slowing the game down against him is a pretty good idea if you can't beat him at his own game. But we'll see.
Yeah, I have to see. Of course, speaking of Team Coast, I misspoke earlier, but yeah, back when they played together, it was interesting because we were talking about during rehearsal, you were saying that Shifter was actually really aggressive about a year and a half ago, and he's been much more passive of late.
Well, even when he was aggressive, it was more of a team fight thing. The thing with Shifter is he's never been a very aggressive player in the lane, and it's interesting to hear Nintendo phrase it like that, where if he falls behind, he gets frustrated easily, which causes him to shut down. Because that kind of comes with playing such a passive kill-focused style, which Shifter does, because Shifter very rarely wins lane in CS. He doesn't necessarily go for solo kills that frequently, and he instead gets his kills from roams or picking things up at the end of team fights, therefore making himself really strong and getting a lead. But if his teammates aren't setting things up for him, he's never really used the mechanisms to create that advantage for himself. So to hear Nintendo say that when he falls behind, he gets frustrated, it's interesting to me because it kind of is natural with his playstyle that he won't be affected when he falls behind.
Well, I actually have a brief question on that because it's a standout performance because it was special, it was different. But you remember the old Coast TSM game from way back when where he solo carried on Ari?
Right.
And that's maybe 1 out of 50, but he solo killed Bjergsen twice and hard carried, and that was an example game of Shifter going aggro. But I do agree with you that it's rare for him. And I know Dignitas having a lot of struggles this split. Maybe that's him getting behind and feeling frustrated. We're like, oh, I can't rely on Crumbs anymore. I can't rely on Cloud Win. Maybe that's what we're seeing is that this is now the manifestation of his team having a harder split.
Yeah, the last thing that I would say on the Shifter point is in a lot of those games where he'd get the solo kills, back in the day, he would gain so many of his advantages by roaming first. He would roam bottom lane, get kills, and then buy an item, and then solo kill the other mid laner.
Okay.
We'll have to see. Maybe it happened differently in that one. Who knows?
Who knows? Either way, it's going to be a whole bunch of fun on this matchup. Let's check out the starting lineups. On the blue side is Team Dignitas. Gamsu in the top lane, Azingi in the jungle, Shifter in mid, Core JJ on AD carry, and KiwiKid on support.
And on the red side, hoping to get into the LCS, it is Team Fusion. Chunky Fresh in the top lane, Nintendo Deck, Shifter's former teammate in the jungle, Huhi in mid lane, or who is he if you look at the NA solo queue ladder, Ian Chance on AD carry, and Trance on support.
So we're going to get ourselves in a champ select the next 2 to 3 minutes as we give the rest of Fusion still some time to warm up as they should be allowed. And one thing that Des talked about a bit was the extra coaching staff here for Team Fusion, hoping to make adaptations, hoping to learn a little bit as a team. And there's actually a couple of notes of that. Basically looking at regular season Team Fusion compared to playoff Team Fusion in the Challenger Series playoffs. I know, coming into this desk, I was like, all right, Chunky Fresh, we're going to see him play Scion. He's going to play big tanks all the time. And then his last game of regular season, he played AP Gragas. And in the playoffs, he actually had a really strong Rumble and a really strong Hecarim game.
Okay.
And he's started to learn a couple of carry top laners for himself. Similarly, we're seeing Nian Tanso actually go more into the hyper carry role, actually. He'd been playing a lot of Sivir, a lot of Corki, a lot of these sort of mid-range sort of power 80 carries, and he's sort of moving over towards these really big Jinx and Kog'Maw over and over again champions. And also similarly for Trance, he had played engaged tanks the entire season long. Leona, Annie, Alistar, Leona, Alistar, Leona. Yeah. And then suddenly he's playing Janet and Morgana in the 3rd place match to get into this promo tournament right here. Suddenly the champion pools have actually shifted a little bit over the past month or half a month here. And suddenly Fusion are like, oh my god, they could do new things and they're much less predictable now.
I think it's necessary to do that shift. I mean, we've seen
agree.
it in all the major regions. The team that adapts to the Cinderhulk patch the most has been successful. I mean, Yen, in that 3rd place game they played against Final 5, played Kog'Maw Jinx, and had a total kill death of 18 kills and 1 death right? In both of their games, which was incredibly effective. And all the champions you listed are just results of things that are kind of in meta around the world.
Sure.
Disengage supports for the heavy melee teams that people are running. Carry top laners because junglers bring a substantially higher tank threat. And honestly, if you're looking at that team with Nien wanting to be the hyper carry, that is the world that we exist in right now, where it's almost, it's very focused around the AD carry because the team fights are actually spaced properly, because there are tanks, damage dealers, assassins, peelers, all these things are existing right now.
Yeah.
And it creates an environment where AD carries can carry.
Everyone just all kind of builds the right comps this time around. And I agree, it is interesting to see that these guys do seem to play this way. One thing I do want to point out, actually, is Nintendo was ahead of the curve a little bit as well. He was starting to play Sejuani right before the Cinderhulk patch came through. He was about a week early. He's like, no, this champion's really good, and they started playing it a lot for Team Fusion, and he was very successful on that Sejuani, and I was surprised he actually got to play it a couple times in the playoffs, which was a giant mistake that TDK allowed him to play that in Game 1, but that's kind of the world we live in, and Nintendo, I think, as well, has actually really improved a lot as a player. Back when he was on Coast, back when he was on Shifter's team, we used to lament a lot that he would take about 80% of his time sitting in a brush hoping to gank a lane, and he'd have like the most deaths of any jungler, he'd have the lowest farm of any jungler, and he had a really hard time having an impact. He's now done a much better job of actually farming. he's been playing a lot of Nidalee, and Nidalee has to farm to do well, and he's actually getting a lot of farm on Sejuani herself or the other tank junglers to become a big threat and die much less. And his actual improvement as a player, I think, is very marked this year.
Yeah, and so much of this stuff can be attributed to a team environment. Especially you look at this team now with Nintendo and Yen as the veteran voice on the team. I find it much easier for him as a jungler to say, I'm taking this farm because I'm a good player. I know what I'm doing. Whereas before it felt like they got into a pretty negative pattern on the final days of the Nintendo Zion Shifter coast, where it did really feel like, from a team environment, even Nintendo himself was thinking the only way we win is if Zion and Shifter carry us.
Yeah.
So therefore, I'm going to play this style, which I think ended up kind of digging his own grave in the LCS. Whereas now, you need to play. You need to play a natural, efficient style, and that's kind of what we see.
And it's interesting too because I remember during that season, I was like, because I like Nintendo as a person, I like him as a player. I think he's a really cool guy. I've spoken to him a few times. And he was, like, back in the time, I was like, why is he doing so poorly? He's, like, top 10 on solo queue. Like, he'd always been really good. I'd match with Smurf occasionally and get smashed. And it's like, yeah, he's still way better than I am. That's obvious. But it was weird to see this guy who was, like, top 15 solo queue and having such a hard time in competitive. And you're right, you know, matching your style, making sure that you work with the team. Those are all very important things. And it does seem like this is actually a good home for Fusion. And for Nintendo with this team as well. So I think there's a lot of good things going well for the squad.
Well, it's definitely going to be very tricky. Players are loading into the lobby right now. Sorry, everyone, for the extensive delays at the start of the day, but we will be getting into the promotion tournament and name a new LCS team by the end of this series. But Team Dignitas, if we just look at the results over in Europe, or even in the history of the promotion tournament, it is so hard for a team to unseat an LCS team.
Yes.
Especially one like Team Dignitas, who honestly had such a poor dip in the middle of the year, but now have actually had some time to gel. Rico, as their coach, came in right at the end of the year. A lot of the players really respected him right off the bat, but it takes time to instill some of the macro strategy or the team practice environments that they'd actually want to get going, especially when they have language differences, where Dignitas has been Skyping in translators the whole year. It takes a lot of time, is what we're basically getting into. Azingi, as well, really poor start to the LCS season. He had that Vi game where he had AP runes, and he played nothing but Zac later on in the year, where, yes, we've seen that was a nice thing. Oh, man, Cinderhawk jungle. I play a tank jungler. Zac is good for him.
Great.
But the rest of the league has been running Cinderhawk, Sejuani, and Gragas and Nunu as their main picks. I wonder if Azingi has adapted to any of those things in this time off, because they're going to need to bring their A game to make it back into the LCS.
Absolutely agree. And so here we go, getting ourselves into Game 1's champ select right now. Best of 5 for a spot in the North American LCS 2015 Summer Split. Team Dignitas starting on blue, Team Fusion starting on red. Chunky Fresh starting off with being denied Maokai, Dignitas' first ban.
Pretty generic ban there, right off the bat, trying to stop the team from having the initiation advantage. That's one thing Maokai often offers you in these games. Annie, unfortunately, banned away from KiwiKid. 4 of Dignitas' 6 wins during the regular season were KiwiKid on Annie.
Wow.
So they got to do something they only did twice during the regular season.
That's
win
true.
Without Annie.
That's a fair point. It's going to be an interesting matchup for Dignitas. Absolutely. Of course, we know that they have been pretty consistent against teams lower than them. They were 2-0 on Coast, which is at least something. So you figure Dignitas still has the ability to perform fairly consistently as a team. Rumble away from Gamsu, LeBlanc away from Huhi. I want to see how many assassins they actually remove from Huhi. We've seen him play Diana, we've seen him play Zed, seen him play Ahri. So I want to know what else seems to be contested in this matchup, but right now Dignitas not willing to play against LeBlanc.
Yeah, one thing that we noticed about the game here, by the way, promotion tournament is being played on the 5.6 patch, so not the current live patch. There are the higher percentage bans like Hecarim that you rarely see go through, but you can see 6 different bans depending on which 2 teams are playing.
Yeah.
there's not necessarily a de facto first pick in the entire game, but in a specific series, there may be a de facto first pick as the series progresses. I feel like Kalista was actually a permaban in the Chinese finals last night, every single game, because Imp was so prolific with this champion. I wonder if this is going to be a team fight focused game, and if Sivir sees high AD carry priority. I'm not entirely sure whether we're going to see something like that. Looks like Azing is playing Gragas, though.
Wow, interesting. So the Sejuani ban comes through all the same, and Team Fusion happy to give away Gragas and then kind of lose out on some of these sort of high-priority tank junglers, unless Nintendo wants to play Nunu, something he has not done in a while.
Yeah, we've seen Nunu and Rek'Sai as the kind of fallbacks to those tank junglers. Rek'Sai obviously building Cinderhulk, but since the Gragas' first pick, they're going World of Tanks so far, Sion Urgot.
Wow, he had an absolutely amazing Urgot game back in the semi-final match, so I'd like to get that back for himself. And Chunky Fresh is back on his nice, happy Sion here in the top lane. Could free up Nintendo to play either a squishy backliner like Nidalee, or we can see a comp I've been seeing much more recently, which is a 4 Bruisers plus Sivir type team, which is really hard to deal with in Fusion. We'll see which way they take this comp.
Yeah, they have the flexibility now because they've controlled Urgot. And they sacrifice the Gragas pick. Honestly, even though Gragas has been very effective in games, I'm not entirely sold on it as a first pick. Right? He has significant late game fall off. He's one of those guys who can impact the game hugely in the early and mid game.
Yeah.
But especially since Azingi isn't a really well-known Gragas player, and typically he's stuck to the champions that he's stuck to.
Right.
He has success in solo queue on a very small subset of champions, which is maybe one of the reasons we haven't seen him in pro play that much.
Yeah.
So in order to stay in pro play, he needs to adapt to this Gragas now and prove that it's worthy of a first pick.
Well, here's your chance to prove that you're worth your salt here is Zingy. Gragas, of course, still locked in for him. Kennen and Ziggs come through, so a couple of Yordles for Dignitas Shifter. Actually on what I feel is one of his better champions, Ziggs has the ability to play safe and play back, but also some really good roam plays and really good carry potential as well as a high damage mid laner.
I really love picking an early Ziggs against a team that is threatening to go ball of tanks.
Yeah.
Because the AoE is actually substantial against a team that is that grouped up all the time.
And here we go, Morgana once again for Transcend. It is going to be Nidalee for Nintendo here in the jungle, so a bit more of a falling back pokey type team, and it's good adaptation to see them not play for the death ball against a very AoE focused mage team.
Yeah, I mean, whether or not this is a plan that they had from the beginning or whether it's an adaptation, it looks like it's a bit of a pivot, mainly, because having these picks actually is now a team that doesn't have the most amazing overall synergy because of the mid pick by Ziggs.
Yeah, Sion ults in for, you know, no follow-up.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder how they're going to end up rounding that out with the final counter pick.
Well, speaking of rounding things out with the final pick, though, Saber does come through to knock the team forward, but a Jarvan grabbed here. So is that top Jarvan or jungle Jarvan, and vice versa for Gragas here? Dignitas showing an interesting lineup. Corki does come through for Nien, though, so looks like a lot of poke power for Fusion with a Sion to round it out.
Poke power and Fusion also kind of all in on the mid game here, from the looks of it.
Yeah.
They also have to compete with the mid game power spikes the Team Dignitas is going to be thrown out. If they do Jarvan top lane, Gragas jungle, that is a lot of mid-game power that Fusion needs to be able to go toe-to-toe with. Really interesting final picks there. I feel like Fusion kept their mid lane AD carries a flexible option. I think Yen very well could have done Urgot AD carry if they wanted to.
They can still swap now. I mean, Corki mid's not, you know, too surprising either.
They could.
But yeah, I think this is the lineup we expect to see here out of Fusion. Interesting comp, a lot of poke over here. Team Dignitas, they are going to be top lane Jarvan, so that was the champion that Gamsu wanted to fight Chunky Fresh with. Gamsu is a player I think we've seen do very well overall in the North American LCS, definitely a strong top laner. Chunky Fresh has been having sort of, you know, middling success, so, you know, Jarvan picking him up to try to beat up this Sion could very well work.
Yeah, it's a very risky pick there by Rico and Team Dignitas to have the Jarvan that early because, yes, Jarvan can crush the lane, but if he falls behind Sion in the slightest, he is not going to be able to touch Sion whatsoever. Sion rushes Frozen Heart in the matchup, right? And, all right.
Stops dying.
Stops dying to Jarvan. Maybe we'll see lane swaps. Maybe we'll see him try and get some early roams off in mid lane. The Jarvan has to impact the game early on.
We'll see what impact Gamsu can have in this game. All throughout the series, we'll be keeping tabs on who you think is going to earn a spot in the North American LCS. Share your predictions with us on Twitter by sending hashtag DIGWin or hashtag FSNWin to @LOL Esports. We'll check out on how you guys are voting in just a few minutes into the game. But the best of 5 to determine one of the 2 new spots in the North American LCS for 2015 is almost upon us here. Dig on blue, Fusion on red. We have a game pause to start, so we're not going to get ourselves into that match just yet. Instead, it'll be our faces, but that's okay.
Yeah. We'll find out what the pause is for. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. Obviously, there were some account issues earlier on in the day, so it could be lingering from that, which, you know, who knows if we'll see a remake. Most likely, since there's no game of record, if there is a remake, it'll be the exact same picks and bans, which we can continue to talk about, I suppose.
Yeah, so I know I talked a lot about Fusion's lineup because they're sort of one of the newer teams. I know them pretty well from casting Challenger. But so Dignitas overall as a core group of champions. We talked about the team overall. So let's talk about their champion select. They actually really like their AoE team fight. So we've seen compositions like Jarvan Rumble, right? Lock them in a ring, put fire on top of them. Jarvan Ken and Jarvan Ziggs has a very similar set of exciting points. Even with Sivir, where Ricochet can hit the entire team when they're stuck in this ring. You've got a really scary AoE type team, and it's not a move of fiddlesticks, it's not Curse the Sad Bullet time, but it's the champions that we're seeing played now with the Jarvan, the Ziggs, the Ken, and the Sivir, and these guys are putting together a big area of effect team.
They really are. Kennen is not to be underestimated. A bit of an odd pause that we had there. Chunky Fresh said he couldn't move his champion, but we are back into the game now.
And he's moving.
And he's moving. So I wonder if that's one of those nerve things or not. We'll have to see. Maybe he had to unplug and replug his mouse, so it was actually accepting commands. Nothing to see here, folks. I think we're into game 1.
He hadn't played in 2015 yet, where there's the base gate, and he's like, why am I not leaving the fountain, guys? He actually had items as well, so like he's able to click. I'm just unsure what actually happened. Either way, we're on to the game, so who cares? We're good.
I'm going to go ahead
and say nerves.
Make a bold call here. I could very well be wrong, but I'm going to say Chunky Fresh imagined a bug right there.
Here we go. Either way, 52 seconds into this one, and Chunky Fresh and Gamsu heading to their normal lanes. Flask start for the Jarvan. I do think that's smart. Extra mana regen actually kind of needed on that champion. He has one of the lower mana pools, and you need to use spells as him to do good things in the laning phase. So, Flask, Jarvan, good start for him. We're seeing wards mirror each other all across the map. An early recall from Fusion is going to send Morgana and Corki towards the top lane. So Fusion, from their battle lines, we'll see that no one saw, there's no deep wards, and they will opt to 2v2 the top lane, sniffed out by Dignitas.
Yeah, we'll end up seeing if this is to the benefit or to the detriment of Fusion, because they, even in games during Challenger where they would end up laning, they would shove the wave shop and then go swap again. They really didn't want a 2v2 lane. Sivir can also spell shield Corki's Phosphorus Bomb, and lane, if we get that matchup, it may actually be fairly favorable for Fusion to not 2v2 this one, but they're lined up to do so. Just trying to scout each other out real hard here.
And a ping from Dignitas says, hey, the dual lane's right here. Morgana could, of course, start Puddle, and they could shove the wave really hard, so we'll see what happens. Early jungle starts, Chunky Fresh and Nintendude on different sides of the jungle. Lily's going to be fine. Gamsu gets to lane early and says, all right, I'm just going to get some farm. No one's contesting me at all. So jungle start versus a wave start, and I want to see how this push actually happens.
Oh no, an execute. Chunky Fresh just doing his early level 2. I feel like he'll get to lane around the same time Gamsu is hitting level 2. In fact, there may
It's almost always faster for Sion if you teleports.
There's going to be a lane experience advantage for Chunky Fresh here. The only times I've seen it not be a big advantage is if it's a Riven or something who can shove the wave super easily with 3 Qs and get it to the turret right away. But Gamsu was not playing that style, therefore Chunky Fresh already with a bit of a lead in bottom lane.
The best one I've seen, I think it was Impact, who actually proxied the first wave, made his own wave crash into the turret, and then farmed the double wave and kind of caught up in XP that way. It was a really clever play. I haven't seen it since then. Nintendude clears his side of the jungle, takes the bottom Scuttle Crab, so a bit of vision control might help his top laner, air quotes, survive his Zingy. Zingy went to go look at the Raptor camp, saw it was gone. Gonna go back and grab his own blue.
Well, he also stole the enemy red.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, leaving up one small camp to make sure the wave was there. Somewhat clever in that case, but Nintendude is just going to do the same. And the question will then be who counter jungles whom harder, and it looks like Nintendude will because he's been able to leave a small Raptor, especially if he can continually take this. Leaving a small minion from a buff camp, like blue or red buff, isn't that great because at least half of the experience of that camp is in the small guys. So he's leaving a substantial amount of experience by counter-jungling Nintendo's red instead of just taking the whole thing.
Yeah, and like an early red buff, or like your second red buff, is not that important of a buff to grab in the first place. Blues kind of matter, right? Getting that under your mid laner at like 8 minutes on is pretty nice, but ooh, Nintendo's spotted by a ward shifter. Gonna play safe. Very good trinket ward to put down, spying which way Nidalee would come from. Really intelligent stuff so far by Shifter. The mid lane is pretty much equal. Among the top laners, Chunky Fresh has a small lead for himself down in that, bot lane 1v1, whatever the two offside solos. Fusion, meanwhile, actually pushed up under their turret nearly and getting denied a little bit of experience in gold here. Dignitas 2v2, just as we had thought, is going quite well for them.
Yeah, really early on. Just pushing up, playing aggressively. They have a potential shove advantage, Ricochet with Sivir. Very easy. They also knew they had the safety of side choice for jungler, Azingi counter-jungling the red, making sure Nintendo isn't down there. Additionally, they spotted Nintendo on the map while he was trying to gank mid lane. So it's as planned for a more aggressive lane. Dignitas' duo playing this one properly. Nothing incredible yet, though.
Nothing incredible just yet, but Ziggy wants the mid lane, who he does have flash. We get Saps Charge back into the lineup. 500 health left on him. A decent amount of poke coming through. Nintendo shows top lane, but has nothing to do. There just is not the gank follow-up with this duo lane.
Yeah, I mean, unless they're landing a binding, they're not going to get much going, but I feel like he's just trying to help them shove out the lane. There's a chance that this shove would prompt a lane swap. That's one thing you would try and do before swapping back if you didn't think this lane was going properly. You wouldn't see it in a normal LCS game, but just based on how Fusion has played recently, really heady harass here by KiwiKid to stop Nien from backing. Delaying these backs would stop a lane swap pretty well because they'd be forfeiting so much experience.
And Trance, losing a little bit of health and some time as he's going to take a really awkward recall. Sion does not have teleport, so Chunky Fresh will lose a wave. Trance getting zoned with the turret very intelligently by KiwiKid. And that is going to be, about 140 gold lost to the turret right here. 110, actually, probably about the right number here. But definitely a meaningful amount of money and XP just completely lost by Fusion. It is not a lane swap after all. It is Nien walking back to the lane. Just needed a recall.
Yeah. With all the attention we're playing to this duo lane, though, Fusion is actually winning the other lanes by more so.
That's true.
Nidalee has been farming much more than Azingi's Gragas, which is a decent chunk of that gold lead, and despite the gank, who he was up about 10 CS to Shifter until Shifter cleared the big wave in front of his turret. So the gold is equalizing back and forth a little bit here. Still an edge for Fusion.
Yeah, just seeing random sort of spikes of gold come in. Now it says plus 3 to 400 here on the scoreboard as, rounding ticks back and forth.
Yeah, it's a 400 gold lead for Nintendo over Zingy. That's where pretty all of it's coming from.
Yeah, and that's, again, to me, the really big growth from Nintendo is he actually started getting farmed this year in the Challenger Series, and it was part of the reason Fusion held a lot of early gold leads. This Nidalee, even though we don't see her much anymore in the professional scene, but Nintendo's made this champion work very well for his team, and again, the entire comp is based around poking, so that might go well. Really nice word by KiwiKid. Managed to get towards the bottom side after he recalled for Sightstone. He can spot the buff recall. Or sorry, the buff timing, I should say, when he tries to go for blue. A lot of really smart things for both these sides.
Just a power farm from Nintendo early. One thing Nidalee as a jungler has been able to apply is, a lot of early game pressure, and that's one of the reasons Gragas is a tank jungler that we see in the meta, because he can also apply early game pressure. But there's always the option of just fast farming.
Yeah.
The reason Nidalee can apply the early game pressure is often because she fast farms so well, which then gives her freedom to reach ganks before other teams.
Right.
Or you can just farm really fast and continue to farm really fast that allows you to farm faster. And that's kind of what Nintendo is doing this game with a 20 CS advantage of the jungle at 8 minutes. Like, what is that? That's ridiculous.
It's a very massive lead, absolutely, here. CSD for the jungler. Pretty high. Chunky Fresh is sent to the top lane finally after the enemy duo lane is 6 and 4, but that top lane turret is nearly dead. Fusion going to react to that one by pressuring the bottom lane and going for a dragon off of this one. Zingy's around
already. But yeah, Zingy's here. This would be a way to try and bring it back. He has to go in and get vision. What happens so often is when you see that little ward thing done, you think that it's control, but with him dancing back and forth, he knows they're doing dragon. This is getting dicey for Fusion.
Oh, good bind forces Zingy to jump over the wall. He could always flash it, but he'd lose his life for it. Top lane turret does go down. There's the execute. Whoa! Whoa, 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 whoa. It reset. Wow.
Slow clap right there for Fusion on the Dragon. Not clean.
No.
At all.
Did not count the number of leashes. Yeah, that was unfortunate. But hey, they got
Not the LPL finals. This is the NA promotion tournament at the time, and it's not a knock too heavily on these guys, but that was a poor play on both sides. Whether or not Azingi and Shifter coordinate them going in for a steal with damage, they do that. It's an easy Dragon steal, maybe a kill. And as far as Fusion, they pulled back so far that the Dragon ended up resetting back to them instead of just committing to the Dragon before Dignitas could harass it. Mistakes on both sides, but it ends up with Fusion getting the Dragon.
Okay, so the overall lead, or overall trade, I should say, is top lane out of turret for Dragon. And the weird thing is, Fusion are still up in gold despite being down a turret. They've outfarmed so hard. Chunky Fresh, far ahead of Gamsu, who went Brutalizer, by the way, against an armor stacking champion. That's awkward. And also just the Nintendude farm, even though he spent like literally a minute killing Dragon. A gold lead here. They're going to try to steal for blue buff as well. Azingi is around. Damage coming back and forth. Chunky Fresh forcing Azingi to flash away from his own blue buff, and Nintendude will steal that away.
Fresh burned his silent ultimate there with blue buff harassing. Point blanked it right there, which is what forced the flash from Azingi. And yeah, they successfully steal the blue away. We'll see now if Nintendo can use that blue buff to continue to fast farm or apply some pressure. Regardless, he's full jungle upgrade. He just finished his Magus enchantment.
Yeah.
Whereas Azingi still sitting on that base Trailblazer.
With he's able to just buy Balmy Cinder when he recalls. He's like right at 900 gold right now, or 1,000. Like, yeah, whatever the amount for that one is. Buys a couple of wards as well. So that's going to be okay for him. So Azingi's like, you know, he's almost there. He's getting there a little bit, but yeah, definitely behind right now. The duo lane, of course, continually matched by Dignitas. They managed to knock the turret down, then swap back into the 2-on-2. Dignitas definitely playing their lanes correctly, but they're just getting behind in a couple of them.
Yeah. That's exactly what's happening. I wonder where Gamsu's going to find his effectiveness, because he's continually laying against the Scion, who is now starting to build up a pretty good chunk of armor. At the very least,
94.
At the very least, Dignitas, with the way these lanes have swapped, can assure they maintain their turret lead, which will keep the gold close despite the massive discrepancy in the jungle. It's now over 600 gold, the Nintendo X gold advantage over Azingi, which almost makes up for the turret by itself.
It really does. It's 725, I think, for an outer turret, or 775. I forget. I know the number.
Depends if you get the local gold.
Yeah, assuming they did.
Yeah,
assuming they did. It's 125 global plus 150 to anyone who's nearby. And it looks like Nintendude is going to make a look for the bot lane here. Chunky Fresh really not taking any meaningful damage from Gamsu. It is enough to make him run away from this one. Azingi also looking to lane gank, but on top of a ward while doing so. Blue Trinket spots the Nintendude counter gank. Again, heady play by Dignitas. It's really just Nintendude that's putting Fusion ahead.
Heady play aside from standing on top of a ward, but they didn't know the ward was in there until they got scouted out right there, so smart scrying orb to know what they could and couldn't do, pushing up a wave. And even though the gank was foiled from Azingi, at least it will dissuade Nintendude from staying down there. Azingi really just has to start farming, or either, I want to say use his flash to gank a lane, but he had to burn that taking his own life. Azingi is not having a good matchup for this time.
No, he's absolutely not being effective so far in this game. Otherwise, the lane's slowly eking away. Eking the mid lane with a 10 minion advantage still. Nintendude farming. I believe he spotted Gamsu on the way down, who he puts a ward to keep himself feeling safe, and life is good. Ping on the red buff there by Dignitas. Azingi's like, yeah, okay, you know what, Shifter, you take it. You kill the ward. Great, all right, good job. He just puts a new ward down, who he warding very well for himself. Now both sides of his lane are warded. And I don't think any gank's going to work very easily for Dignitas now.
Yeah, Team Dignitas in a bit of a tricky spot because they killed the early turret so quickly, but they're not finding a way for Gamsu to go and pressure more lanes. Basically, they're just allowing CoreJJ and KiwiKid to continually press down on that bottom lane, and because Nintendude is farming so much, he's not really able to show up to that lane and prevent the shove. The way Team Dignitas can get an advantage here is if CoreJJ and KiwiKid can actually get enough pressure to take a 2-turret to 0 lead, and then basically just use that strength of CoreJJ and KiwiKid to do a 3-for-0 turret trade. Outside of that, because of how far Nintendude, how heavily Nintendude is farming, and what a poor game Azingi is having in the jungle, it will be tough for them to win if they can't get this early turret lead.
Yeah, that gold lead is now 800 between the two junglers. It's just getting worse and worse over time. Looks like Nintendo is going for the Rod of Ages build, so some durability to add to the front line.
You can see already that Nintendo is sensing that point of weakness that his team would have, where CoreJJ and KiwiKid can't be dealt with, and he is actually spending a fair bit of time bottom lane, though. His timing is just off. He arrived right as Fusion was pushing out that lane, right as CoreJJ had shopped, and now they're just going to be on the offensive again. Actually, never mind. CoreJJ is sitting on 2,000 gold.
Yeah.
He was just back in lane in anticipation of a gank.
And he managed to buy the early Avarice Blade. Again, a good early landing phase, a good early turret kill. BF sword Avarice Blade, a really happy recall to have. He's just farming money off that item. The Avarice itself worth 235 bonus gold. It's only going to get higher from here. So he's like a wave away from Infinity Edge if he wants it. Or Pickaxe Xerxes right now if that was his choice instead. But
well, he's shopping right now, so it's probably what he's going for.
All right, just straight up IE. 2250 for the upgrade. Gets like a potion for it. And on he goes. So, yeah, big power, 14.5-minute Infinity Edge without getting any kills, plus an extra item. I mean, that is just a dumb amount of money right here. He's got the highest CS in the game. Dignitas able to play around their AD carry quite nicely, but his recall timing is slightly off. Dragons respawn while he's back in base with an advantageous AD carry. Nian's already there with Triforce.
Big Triforce power spike, Frozen Heart on Sion as well. Not a bad fight for Fusion.
And they go for a Zingy, knocking about a half health, 800 on him. One more Q coming through, nearly going down. Nian. Oh, not quite going to kill him with the rockets there, and it's going to give time for the AD carry of Dignitas to rejoin the fight. And Fusion took a lot of damage while doing this.
Yeah, Gamsu teleported down as well, leaving that top lane to fight itself. Fusion really needed to find a kill somewhere in that chaos because they had CoreJJ in a back timing. Now they're trying to catch something on the back end.
Oh, it's going to be close. Can't quite catch CoreJJ. That wasn't having to spell shield that one either. So maybe a wave gets cleared, but Dignitas dual lane going to be fine. Really good spell shields all game. CoreJJ, great reflexes. He's blocked, I think, perfectly every spell shield.
Yeah, he has been crushing this lane. Aside with KiwiKid's cannon. Fusion continuing the pressure on this dragon. They're trying to draw Fusion in for something and hope to get a catch. KiwiKid!
Forcing the flash out, forcing the heal as well for Nian to try to save his support there. Counter engage, and oh no, the knockup comes through. It stops Valkyrie, and that's first blood for CoreJJ. Great follow-up by Dignitas.
Yeah, that's the mid-game impact that the Jarvan wanted to have. He burned his burst combo there. KiwiKid burned his ultimate. Now Dignitas tries to turn on the dragon. It does not like Fusion wants to give this up easily, though.
They're going to try, but they got to be careful about their health bars. And this one is Zingy happy to tank out. Flash body slam knocks in Chunky Fresh. It's a pretty tanky Sion, but Infinity Edge and Shifter popping to the ulti as well. Huhi taking a bunch of pain. That will be a dead Urgot. Chunky Fresh to buy a little bit of time, but he's got really nothing to do here. The Q knocks off his shield. Going to be disengaged. 2-0 Dig.
Of all the people to knock into the team, it's the Sion, but it still creates a fight for Team Dignitas that they can end up winning. Zingy getting that kill as well helps tremendously in his item pacing for this game. Team Dignitas finding the fight in that stage of the game, using the Sivir ultimate to disengage, the Gragas ultimate to re-engage, all very positive things, but the Dragon, the true objective is still up.
It is still up, a 1,000 gold lead for Dignitas. They've been able to mostly recall and head back across the map. Now Shifter, the guy around, oh my god, that crit nearly takes out Nintendude. CoreJJ refusing to let objectives go away.
30% critical strike when you count that Avarice Blade. If he would have got 2 in a row, he would have killed him.
That's true.
That would have been rather lucky. 9%. Even so, it pushes him off and makes him a very, very scared kitty cat on Nidalee right there. Nintendude still not even reached his item timing for the Rod of Ages. And this dragon, man, these teams really want that dragon. Looks like Team Dignitas should be able to get this one, though.
Chunky Fresh does have teleport, but all of Fusion very far away, and Infinity Edge Saber going to help that one quite nicely. Good smite. Attack boost, Dragon #1 here for Dignitas. So, 800 gold lead for the blue team. Dignitas looking to defend their LCS spot in this best of 5. So far, honestly, not too bad. Bot lane, though, left untouched. The entire team rotated mid while Sivir recalled, giving the end time to knock his turret down. Chunky Fresh also unanswered, so Dignitas's force on that dragon actually gives a lot of time for Fusion to push the other sides of the map.
Yeah, really strange how that all went down because Fusion is the ones who initially started the dragon, but it was such a back and forth. Teams, they lost wave control entirely, and it ended up going to Fusion amongst the chaos, and now the turret lead may actually be in Fusion's side, but a Zingy coming to Chunky Fresh. He's got to get the ultimate. Ooh. That's a Jarvan wall for you. Nice.
Goodbye, Chunky Fresh. Gets some damage down, pops the shield, but dies finally in the end. He can clear part of a wave. Nintendo, who he were roaming top lane, couldn't get there in time. Shifter, nice dodge the binding. Trance unable to predict the satchel away quite properly, but mid lane still under fire a little bit. That top lane turret nearly dead. Nintendo on the flank. But the wave clear's too good, and CoreJJ getting a lot of free time now in the bot lane. Fusion looked to push mid lane, couldn't do it against Ziggs. And they're going to lose a turret for it, or nearly.
Yeah, nice pressure by CoreJJ, but he respects the Morg to come down here. I also want to point out the early last whisper by Gamsu. That kind of dictates that he is trying to stay engaged with the Sion. You wouldn't want the last whisper for the majority of the targets on the team, but at this point, Brutalizer last whisper at this point is a good item choice. And Trans with a face check.
Oh man, goodbye. That's going to be the first kill picked up. Neon Force run away. That's going to be a stun landing, but nothing else to do. Siver's spell shielded the Q, so Morgana didn't know there was anyone in the brush. He walked all the way through instead of warding on the very edge of it. Just little things, man. You expect, oh, I didn't get 5 gold. All right, no one's here. Just kidding.
Scout with a W. Next time.
Or just ward from your brush to the other one. You know, any one of those things.
Sneaky play there by CoreJJ. And again, I mean, that's the big strength that we thought was coming from this team. Dignitas team, along with Gamsu, are the ones that are successful here. Gamsu building a full amount of armor penetration, able to get a kill with the help of a Zingy, but mainly CoreJJ and KiwiKid now pretty much without aid, taking out 2 turrets.
Yep.
2 turrets 20 minutes into the game as a duo lane without help.
In straight up 2-on-2s, yeah.
Against Yen, who is kind of supposed to be the carry for this Fusion team. That may be one of the reasons they don't 2v2 lane very often. They don't have the confidence together. They've been forced to do so this game, and it is really hurting.
It absolutely is. The CS is staying close. Nian's always good at finding farm for himself, so like that scoreline won't look too bad, but you're right, Jat. 2 turrets taken down, 3 kills and assists combined for each of the AD carry, or sorry, each of the bottom lane members of Dignitas. KiwiKid great engages, CoreJJ great follow-up, now mid lane under fire, and there's no threat that bot lane gets pushed in for a while, so the siege can stay.
Yeah.
And the damage coming through from Ziggs. Ooh, looks like they want to control the right side jungle as well, so Dignitas can make the easy roam over if they need to. I don't know the blue buff timing anymore, but looks like KiwiKid really wants to control the vision around it. And they will take some time for CoreJJ to grab this bottom lane. They can make that one shove up, once again re-siege to mid, and with the ward control on the right-hand side of the map, they can siege mid until bot slow pushes, just run over, take the turret.
Yeah, scaling-wise, I think these team compositions are very close in the mid-game. I would give a slight edge to Team Dignitas in the late game, but it's close only because Jarvan and Gragas have some bit of a late game fall-off, but Ziggs and Sivir, when you compare them with Urgot Corki,
yeah, I really like Sivir.
It's close. Like, it's actually very close as far as scaling goes. So with this close game already, means we're in for a bit of a battle unless Dignitas can snowball this turret advantage somehow.
They're going to look to snowball the mid lane right there. KiwiKid flashing on in. A bit of damage in a Huhi, but a bit too tanky of a target overall. Does give them time to knock down the mid lane outer turret, and this should be the 3rd turret kill of the game for Dignitas if they stay for it. One more auto. There it goes. 3 turrets to 2 overall. The scoreline here, mid lane nearly untouched. So, turret advantage.
3 turrets to 2. They did lose that one in the top lane. Gamsu was unable to go up and save it. Not a massive turret lead. It would be advantageous for Team Dignitas now if they can take more control of the Fusion jungle. But, of course, they need to get their recall timings back, buy their items, and then take sets. So still a competitive game here.
Definitely still is. As always, Nintendo leading the charge in terms of gold lead. He's down a kill, an assist, and a turret, and he's up 500. Just, it feels like I'm setting a broken record here, but there's just so much farm on Nidalee that Nintendo is an extra damage threat here. Who he's farming just fine, so is Nintendo, and so is Niantanso. So
here's the crazy thing, though.
Yeah.
CoreJJ has 1,600 more gold than
God.
Which helps. But CoreJJ's in bottom lane when KiwiKid gets swapped.
And swap on in right in front of the Nintendo X, and it's going to be a bit of damage going back and forth, but the great bind! Trance making that kill happen. Huhi gets his first kill of the game, and maybe mid lane can fall.
Nice ban by Trance. Bad ultimate by Zingy. He completely whiffed his disengage ult on Gragas, allowing the Fusion assault to continue. And this is that mid-game they want. They have a level 11 Yen. They have a Manamune Urgot with maxed shield and Acid Hunter. Very soon to have Muramana.
Next spell, pretty much. Okay, 2 more spells, sorry. And yeah, there it is. All right. 23, 29. Actually, yeah, about normal for the combined, right? You want to look at like low 20s usually.
Yep.
But that's the power spike for Fusion. We'll see if they can do anything more with that. Luden's Echo has been done for Shifter for a while, so his actual poke is quite scary. He crushes waves even faster than normal, plenty of ability power, extra move speed as well, so he's hard to catch. Shifter can do a lot of work for the Dignitas team, but Fusion have grouped everyone. Gamsu is pushing top lane. There's no teleport, so this turret will take a lot of damage as payment for this siege here in the mid lane.
Yeah. I wonder if they're going to fight over the dragon here or just try and push them off the mid lane. Gamsu is pushing, but they landed a lot of poke.
Whole lot of damage comes through. KiwiKid tries to engage the move speed, not quite at the stun Huhi, but there's going to be a zingy body slam flash, and the Jarvan ulti locks up to Trance. Is going to fall as well. Chunky Fresh now on the retreat. KiwiKid can't quite catch more, but it's a 3-for-0 overall.
What a massive fight right there by Team Dignitas, using the Sivir ult. I thought Sivir would be a contested pick in this series. Maybe it'll end up being so later. They ult in, they get the initial catch. Gamsu comes down from the top lane to crush them, and now Team Dignitas goes for an early Baron. There is Smut up on the other side. Come on, guys. You can do it.
Nintendude is equal level, plus he's Nidalee. It's going to be very intense. 1,400 health goes in, 2,000 HP picked up by a Zingy. Early smite by Nintendude. Chunky Fresh can't pick up a kill either. A 2-for-0 plus Baron. That's going to be great for Dignitas. Giant lead.
You live and die by the Baron. That's one way to do it. Team Dignitas won the team fight and then went for the home run here. Let's take another look at the team fight. They had landed such substantial poke from the Ziggs that it was easy for them to run them down. And the flank from the back teleported in, actually, just to jump over the wall and dunk Nien. Nien has been getting crushed this game and may continue to be crushed with that full AD Jarvan, Ravenous Hydra, unless Fusion can find the initiation onto Gamsu. There's nothing protecting Nien. Black Shield will not help you against Jarvan's physical damage.
And what's interesting as well is just like front lines, I feel like sometimes can be hard to use against AoE teams who are happy to just kind of run at you and be like, yeah, we're going to hit everybody. Like, whatever, tanks are here, kind of regardless of where they are or not. You kind of hit the back line a little bit in the end. Oh, wow, that's a crit. It would kill him, but it didn't quite do it. Zigzult, not quite going to kill him either. Shifter not going to get the killing blow, but it will be a bot lane tier 2 turret going down. 4 turrets to 2 now. Dignitas up by every pretty much meaningful metric here in this game.
The core JJ KiwiKid lane has been dominating this matchup. That is the biggest reason the Team Dignitas is ahead in this game. The Dragon kerfuffles that they've had don't matter to the difference of core JJ versus Nien. Basically created in the 2v2, where they're able to get these things. Yes, Zingy came in, he found a few ultimates in teamfights. Gamsu has been able to pick up kills on the back end. Shifter has kept the wave clear up. But specifically, it's been Core JJ and KiwiKid.
Yeah, they have done so much heavy lifting for the Dignitas lineup, and now Righteous Glory done for KiwiKid as well, so he can run even faster. He's got Distortion cooldown boots. He's basically Annie in this game, just the stun takes a bit longer to happen. But yeah, I've got to say, it looks very good for Dignitas. The Annie gets banned, he finds a different caster to play in the support role. No big problem here. Team Fusion down 8K, needs some way back into this one. You said the scaling, you know, fairly close, maybe a slight edge to dig, so waiting for late game, not even a really viable strategy.
Yep.
Even the wave clear's not that great. It's like Corki and like kind of Sion shouting at things, so a defensive pattern also pretty hard for Fusion here. Dignitas looking very good in game 1 of this best of 5.
Core JJ has completed his 3rd major item before Nien's finished his 2nd.
Ouch.
Gamsu is at a point on Jarvan where he can one-shot a squishy target in Nien. Additionally, with 4 outer turrets down, but 3 outers for Fusion, if they want to farm, they have to put themselves in harm's way. And Team Dignitas has a Sivir ultimate and a Righteous Glory on Kennen. So if they ever see Fusion in an empty lane when they're not on near a turret, Team Dignitas will rush them and win the fight with their large gold lead. At this point, Fusion needs Team Dignitas to make an over-dive mistake. Because if Team Dignitas just plays this one out smart, pokes the turrets with Ziggs, pushes the waves with their stronger solos, or even catches someone like that, they got this one.
Black Shield used, but intended already pretty low. Chunky Fresh goes to engage a fight. I'm not sure if they want it. There is no Gamsu, though. It is a 5v4. Zigzult comes in, a lot of damage. Nien out of the fight without even doing anything.
Yeah, and I think they're going to burn Sion's Flash as well, which makes this next turret siege may end up being a 5th turret for Team Dignitas. Fusion is a lot of low players right now.
I can't see there being a good defense here for Team Dignitas, while Gamsu is still pushing in the bottom lane, so they could always rotate down to bot inhibitor turret if they choose to do so. Turret number 5 goes down, mid lane wave cleared up, and do Dignitas choose an inhibitor turret to fight? They will go for the mid lane here. Corki rejoins, Sion close as well, swap in for Huhi onto CoreJJ, but a flash keeps Sever safe as Zingy buys some more time for the team, and Fusion will not find any kills in this engage. Meanwhile, Gamsu with a killing spree takes down Nintendo X, chased out by Niantazo, flashes away. CoreJJ here to almost kill off Trance, but no wards, let them auto attack. More kills inside the base though, Dignitas getting farther and farther ahead.
The Ghostblade Jarvan with boots 1 just deletes Nintendo on the backside of that fight. That was... Gamsu's got to be having a lot of fun right now.
Yeah. Hey man, he's got the highest kill participation on the team as Assassin Jarvan, so I can't say it's not working here.
Yeah, let's take a look at this. There's the dive on one side, but I'm more worried. He doesn't even get the Q damage.
He crit that.
Yeah, well...
With Ghostblade, 50%. He crit the first auto attack. It just destroyed.
Well, plus he gets the martial cadence from his passive,
yeah,
which is a 10%. The thing is, Gamsu didn't even land his EQ combo for the damage.
No.
He's still
I think his body got the knockup. It just smacked him twice. Hydra damage going to be like 250-ish or so as well. So, you know, no big deal. Assassin Jarvan looking good. 8 of 10 for his team. High percentage. Blue buff going to go over. CoreJJ already mid lane to hold for the wave clear, so Dignitas also doing a good job of assigning people to the right lanes, making sure nothing goes down. Fusion really have just been unable to find much to do all game.
They did get their lane swaps, right?
Yeah.
And Fusion has brought in new coach, an analyst, Kurishachi and Bubadub, but I mean their biggest hole was their late game shotgun.
Yep.
And when you're losing the early game and you're already weak in late game shotgun, you don't have much going for you. This is a really difficult time for Fusion.
Yeah.
I think they found a friend though. Let's see if Gamsu can take one with him.
He does not have flash. He can ult and EQ out, and he's got friends, so he's good.
Found his friend.
Good block shield. No kills.
What a slick little move there by Gamsu. I thought he was just going to try and kill someone.
Yeah, I was too. It's like, all right, he's going to take one with him.
Yeah.
Here we go. No flash. It's going to be do or die. You know, it's going to be...
As soon as he would have gone in to try and do that, Urgot would have ulted him.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't have had any time to get his first off. So he found where the Urgot was, ran directly away from that, managed to not get hit by Dark Binding. Flew all over the place.
Oh, good job. Flying high, the Demacian standard. So far, Jarvan the 4th can feel pretty good about this game. Blue buff. Javelin blocked by Gamsu, blue buff stolen. Happy for him. Merc Tread's picked up, so the I guess Bind and Scion stuns will be diminished somewhat. Turret number 2, Dragon number 2 goes over to Dignitas, makes them kill turrets faster. Fusion have set up around Baron that has spawned now. Fusion looking for a Death Brush. This is their attempt to close the game or get their way back in, and Dignitas, we're just going to go mid, dude. I don't care if you go Baron.
Fusion should not be fighting this.
Well, they're going to do anyway. KiwiKid right in the back line, going to stun a whole bunch of people, and nearly everyone is dead. Big Zigzal, 1-for-1. Actually, not the worst fight we've seen yet from Fusion, but now it's getting a whole lot worse. A triple kill for CoreJJ. Will he get any more?
Fusion,
nice flash.
Pretty good at running away after this.
This is a squishy Gamsu, so Nien puts some threat down. No, looks like nothing else to get picked up here. Nintendo.
Fusion very close to getting 5 kills there for CoreJJ, but because they had the initiation, they end up trading what looks like a 3-for-2. 4-for-2.
4 for CoreJJ.
And 5-for-2. I don't think Nintendo's getting away here, since they did scout him out.
Delayed pentakill.
Oh, no!
CoreJJ! Steal it! Ah, delayed pentakill. CoreJJ, the last 2 unassisted, kind of. Nicely done. 8-0 and 5. Dignitas looking really good now in game 1. 33 minutes in. Massive lead. 8-0 AD carry.
Yeah. If Fusion doesn't initially get the pick here, back away. The only way they win this game is if they get a pick onto a squishy. Instead, Chunky Fresh ults a Gragas at this point. KiwiKid lands an okay ultimate and everyone jumps on him. It's a little bit of a strangely spaced fight, which is why 2 members of Team Dignitas fell. But the actual damage dealers, the things that Fusion would have to kill in order to win a fight, were completely untouched. Ziggs and Sivir completely safe in that fight. Poor fight from Fusion. hole in the late game shot calling. They're already behind. They cannot walk up and have a straight-on 5v5 in any world that works. Team Dignitas gets 5 kills on the quarter day because of that.
That's going to be a pretty good place for Dignitas to be in right here. Baron back on the field if they want to use that to push the base on in. Strangely, Dignitas' siege is very, very strong with Ziggs and Kennen for some poke, but looks like sitting in front of an inhibitor turret is not what Dignitas wants to do. Instead, they are controlling Baron vision for now. They're actually letting Fusion knock down mid lane first. So the mid siege not going to happen for a while. Jarvan splitting top for a bit, but this turret might go down. They don't stay. Here's the engage, here's the teleport. KiwiKid once again goes for the ulti. They're going to knock down Trance right away. A kill for CoreJJ. Zigzil comes in a second. 7 kills in a row.
He is a 4 offensive item Sivir. 34 minutes into the game, and the only player on Fusion who has built an armor item is Sion. So if he's hitting anybody else, he is destroying them in a couple of hits.
And even Baron Nashor, short work for the Fed Sivir. 1,000 health. Down it goes. Bottom lane tier 2 goes down, so Fusion getting some split push pressure down a little bit, but not enough to make an impact on this game. Gamsu ready to knock down an inhibitor turret. I guess the same for Fusion's kind of makeshift dual lane down here. That will be a pretty good turret kill. But guess what? The rest of your base is dying here. 2-man defense, 3-man siege. Inhibitor goes down.
Yeah, Fusion's hoping that they can win a 2v2 down here against Ziggs Gragas, in which case they'd be able to force something. But if they lose this 2v2 as well, they're going to be in trouble. They get one.
They get one, and Shifter's in a 1v2 now. The inhibitor will fall. The rest of the base survives. This is like one of the best split pushes ever. Fusion make a great call in the late game to get an inhibitor kill against Baron buff and even get a kill out of it.
Wow.
That was impressive.
No, that was a really good call there by Fusion, and a very poor response by Team Dignitas. They did not need to have that as a 2v2 coming down. They're trying to make up for that. It's become a scattered game here. Let's see if CoreJJ
Spell shield's down, Exhaust is on, but there's no ulti for Trance. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Urgot and Corky are still fighting. This time they brought someone who deals a little bit more damage.
Goodbye.
There we go.
And goodbye into the backlines as well. Chunky Fresh, the only man standing. KiwiKid doesn't do that much damage in support.
He's like, buddy, you left me, CoreJJ. CoreJJ says, we have super minions, dude, let's win. There's 30-second death timers on everyone from Fusion, so while they did net an inhibitor out of their trade, eventually they get ran down because Dignitas has such a huge lead. That'll do it.
Looks like that's going to do it. 12-0-5, the final score for CoreJJ. He won him the early game by knocking turrets down. He went on the team fights with like 8 kills in a row, and that's going to be GG. 36 minutes. Dignitas win game 1 on the road back into the North American LCS.
Yeah, average length game, but a very decisive win there by Team Dignitas. I would say the main question mark that Team Dignitas has after that game was a Zingy's Gragas play. This was a team that had 21 kills. And Gragas, who was supposed to be this early game, very involved jungler, was 2-4.
Yeah.
That's like a...
most deaths on his team.
What, 30% kill participation?
6 of 20 is...
Yeah. 33. It's around 30.
Yeah, just under 0.3.
Not liking that one, personally. But the rest of the team, huge. CoreJJ, massive. Big question marks for Fusion, Yen, and Trance. Either need to lane swap and commit to the lane swap, or have a better lane matchup. Corky is a mid-game carry. Obviously, Sivir's good against it because of the spell shield interaction.
Right.
That went really poorly, though, for them.
Yeah, I mean, you saw some coordination hiccups for Team Fusion, right? The dragon getting leashed, and then, like, thankfully they still got it, but that was really crazy. And then just the fact they couldn't quite keep the dragon when they tried again afterwards, and that got really weird. Yeah, they blind picked a lane swap, and Dig did their research. Yeah. And that's kind of the fun thing is, you know, when you have these battle lines and you can't see what's going on, like, Dig expects the lane swap. Fusion got read like a book and didn't kind of game theory, like, they're going to expect the lane swap, so we shouldn't swap, and then, you know, you flip coins, and Dig, you know, Dig came up heads, so... You know, they get the 2-on-2. And that's, of course, difficult, right? When you're playing a guessing game, you can't guarantee you get what you want, but Dig guessed better, and very large props to their 2-on-2. They did a great job winning that lane.
Yeah, and then Gamsu's Jarvan, as far as forcing fights once they had an advantage, was incredibly good at getting to the few squishy targets that Fusion did have. We did mention one final thing here. When Team Dignitas locked in the Ziggs, you could tell it really changed Fusion's mind about what type of team comp they were doing.
Yeah.
And there wasn't synergy there. It was half a tank ball team, half a poke team. and it never quite fit, and I think Team Dignitas exploited that.
Yeah, it was really well done by Team Dignitas overall. So for more on their first win, we're going to send it over to our guys on the analyst desk.
Thank you, Freak. As Jat mentioned there, pretty decisive win for Dignitas, even though it was a very average length game. First thing I want to look at is, because we talked about it so much in the pregame, the lane swap scenario and the fact that it didn't happen, right? We ended up in a 2v2 here, and I think it really did put Fusion at a disadvantage.
Yeah, it did happen. Way too late, though.
That's true.
They tried to swap it so late. They did stay up in CS, but Nien just seemed really scared of that lane. They kind of misplayed it with their backs and trance, and then they lost the turret for it. And they traded Dragon, and that actually gave Dignitas a little bit of a foothold in the game, because then they just kept swapping Core JJ into the lane that didn't have a tier 1 turret up, so then he just knocks it down with Sivir.
Especially looking at that 2v2, though, we see Corki Morgana, which generally you'd say, hey, that seems like a pretty solid early game duo there. Land a binding, get some good damage on top of there. Corki's got great burst. How does that 2v2 play out exactly?
It's actually a really poor lane. There's a bunch of reasons why I picked into it. The first reason is that they needed magic damage. Fusion were lacking damage. I mean, they had Nilly, they had like Sion a little bit, but they didn't have enough, and they also didn't have wave clear. So they picked Corki to kind of supplement that. But Corki is not getting into Sivir. Sivir has her spell shield, and then Morgana's not getting into Sivir either, and then Kennan's getting into Morgana. So that lane was absolutely not good for them 2v2. And then they had Jarvan top against the Sion, which is not absolutely great for Sion, and Sion does a lot better in 2v1. So Fusion 100% should have swapped, but they decided not. Well, they kind of got called. They're pretty sure they pointed, and then they just went top. Dignitas did the same thing. They expected them 2v1, but they needed to get that 2v1. Fusion, if they got 2v1, they probably would have came out early game even, and that would have been much better. Or they should have had Nien play a hyper carry and still look for 2v1. But if they don't get 2v1, they at least have an out. But in this game, they weren't going to win team fights if they're this far behind.
The Jarvan is the next thing I want to talk about, because it kind of came out of nowhere. Jarvan top, we've seen it in the past, but does not necessarily fall into the meta of the game currently. So where did it come from?
It's a super risky pick, right? There's definitely a lot of weaknesses to it in the meta. He built it full damage. He ended up 4-0-9 with 313 CS. He got to play his Jarvan 4 top game just pretty much perfectly, blowing up squishies in the backline. The thing is that if it gets behind and it dies early, and if it gets lane swapped on, it's absolutely horrible in those situations. So it's easy to shut down, so it's high risk with, like, I guess, kind of fun reward.
Well, and I mean, we saw what he did to Nien in the backline there, anytime he ended up on top of him. But this, again, I mean, it plays into, and you already spoke about it, especially the idea that a 1v2, a lane swap, would have really punished Dignitas for that pickup. So, you know, I think we look to game 2 if they are willing to give the J4 over again, because I wouldn't necessarily say the J4 was the issue. Although a fantastic scoreline, J4, I don't believe, was what, you know, made the decision here in the game in terms of who won and who lost. So knowing that they could give up that J4 again, you think they just pushed really hard for that lane swap and Dignitas might fall into that trap of saying it worked, let's pick it again.
Yeah, I do think that the J4, like, because if you look at Dignitas' picks, their last round was J4 Sivir. That's all they're engaged, because before they have Gragas, Kennen, and Ziggs. So they're looking for their hard engage after they see the Nidalee come out. So they're like, okay, we have to find a way to reach that Nidalee through the Sion. So I think the J4 pick was really good in this situation, and they played it appropriately. Because Jat touched on it where the Fusion composition is like, we want to poke you and engage. And Fusion fell into this big trap where when they were behind, they just started team fights against a Sivir instead of poking beforehand. So I love the J4 pick, and I don't like the way Fusion played their comp.
The next pick I want to look at for Dignitas was Zingy's Gragas. Gragas is a fantastic champion. However, he fall insanely behind on CS there. He was doing his best to put gank pressure on lanes, but he wasn't getting anything out of it. Especially, he ended up 16 CS to 37 within the first 7 minutes of the game. I mean, that again, I feel like is going to be one of the weak points of Dignitas that Fusion and Nintendo can attack.
That was very questionable. I think in the next game, because Fusion's going to be blue side, all these games, they can really go for early first pick junglers and ban out some of Zingy's junglers. And if they can keep this sort of advantage on the junglers, we could really see, especially in 2v1 where lanes are more even, and then Nintendo can definitely take over a game. Because that performance last game was not good by Zing. He was so far behind, and it was because of blunders, mainly due to their bot lane from Fusion, that Zing got back into the game. And that's not something that should happen. To be 20 CS behind by level 5, that's insane.
Yeah, and another thing too is since they do swap sides, and you touched on it, Fusion get to drop their Sejuani ban, and Dignitas pretty much have to pick it up because Nintendo, he even like gave us an article on LOL Esports about how good Sejuani is right now. So he's always going to take that champion first. So that's something that Fusion have to think about, and Dignitas definitely have to think about their picks and bans.
All right, I do want to jump into our replay 24 minutes in. Mostly because I want to look at the use of the Sivir engage here, as well as the Kennen. And we talked about KiwiKid. Is he going to be able to engage the way he wants to? We saw the Annie band away, but the fact that he's picked up Kennen, that's AoE stun engage, right? That's what he loves right there. Wants to make that play. And we see it here. We see the power of this bottom lane for Dignitas and their ability to control the map even through the mid and late game. So we're going to pull that up onto your screens right here, and Zyrene's going to talk us through it.
So this was a good example of how Fusion just overplayed their hand. They go a little too far forward, and the lane wards from Dignitas are really good. You usually should be placing wards to replace dead turrets that you've taken on the enemy's side, so you can flank them like this. So as we roll the clip out, you're going to see they've already pinged that ward, and Gamsu's made the call that he's going to come in. So they start the TP, Core JJ immediately activates his ultimate as they see the Valkyrie leave, and they know Nian at this point is basically, if they can get to him, he's dead, and there's the full damage dunk from Gamsu. And the Sivir ultimate just helps them run down, and Dignitas really kind of revolve around this pick with this composition to roll through Fusion. So just looking back at the picks and bans too, I do think that Fusion might actually drop the Sejuani for a Sivir ban here, the more I think about it, because just that fight right there shows Core JJ's strength on that champion and how they all kind of get on the same page when that ultimate is popped.
Right, that was actually going to be my question coming out of that, was with the side swap, which bans are we going to see dropped and flipped around? Again, we see that J4 as something that, yeah, I mean, that's one of those picks that comes out of left field and you see one time and you have a knee-jerk reaction of, I think we should just ban that because they probably haven't practiced against it too much, right? But that's my fear, right? Is that they will ban it because I think it's beatable. Yes. I think that they should not have that reaction. They shouldn't look at it and go, oh, 409, like, oh, we have to get rid of that. He clearly carried the game. No, if you play out the early game the way that the team wants to, there's a way to beat that pick. And finally, I want to look at Fusion's shot calling because we did talk about how, or Jat mentioned how one of their weakest points is their late game shot calling. Sometimes they fall apart there. They've just had the advantage of having a pretty large early game lead in so many of their games that the shot calling doesn't matter as much. Well, here we actually saw a decent example of shot calling for them in that inhib trade. I actually did like the call, and Jat said it as well, when they made the call to switch inhibs. However, they got collapsed on. Zyrene, I know you had a feeling about a different way that could have played out.
Yeah, the part where they were getting collapsed on, Chunky Fresh still had his TP. If he had TP'd and who he placed one of his trinket wards, he could have TP'd in. They could have had a 3-man unit possibly turned on to Shifter, or at least, because overall it was a 4-on-5 on the map, counting everybody, because they had killed a Zingy beforehand. So if they were able to TP into that, have Morgana keep tabs on the base, keep tabs on who was collapsing, they could have had a better way out of that and possibly to turn it. So the shot calling is very good in terms of like, we're going to trade things if Nian is involved, if he has actually made it to the late game completely unscathed. So the lane swap, I think, weighed a little bit on his mentality and how he felt the flow of the game was going. So just cleaning that up a little bit is what Fusion has been struggling with for a while. And I don't know if it's going to get better throughout the set as the pressure gets higher and higher. But Fusion, they do usually drop their first game. Mm-hmm. They usually lose their first game, and then they come back after the next one. So we'll see if their support staff has it in them to get their spirits up and to actually go through the picks and bans and come out with a really nice hashed comp.
All right, well, we're going to step away while the teams prepare for our second match between Fusion and Team Dignitas. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more of the NA LCS Promotion Tournament after this.
What do I get?
All right, guys. Also,
I forgot.
I don't know your rune pages. What do you mean you forgot?
I'm missing all of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So make them. Oh my. Time is money, friend.
forcing the heal as well for Nien to try to save his support there. Counter engage, and oh no, the knockup comes through. It stops Valkyrie, and that's first blood. Whole lot of damage comes through. KiwiKid tries to engage the move speed, not quite on the stun. Huhi, but there's going to be a Zingy body slam flash. Nearly everyone is dead. Big Zigzal, 1 for 1. Actually, not the worst fight we've seen yet from Fusion, but now it's getting a whole lot worse. A triple kill. Dignitas win game 1 on the road back into the North American LCS.